Hi everybody. I should say welcome from sunny Mildura. I escaped the day after my suburb was declared a hotspot. I escaped to Mildura and relocated, not because of COVID. It was something I planned for months. It's just the timing. The timing couldn't have been worse. But anyway, got here. So yeah, look, I call myself an assistive digital technology specialist. I've done this for about 20 years. When the NDIS decided to come up with assistive technology and put everything you can imagine under the sun under it, I thought I better throw the term digital in just to separate it. And I suppose I generally have an approach which means that I meet the person, get to know them, listen to them, which incredibly is a fairly important thing that sometimes gets overlooked. Get an idea of their needs, limitations, issues, and then come up with a technology. I call it a technology platform these days because it's usually much more than just simply the old idea of a computer. And the key is that it all has to fit in and work together. And in the end, I work on the idea that, one, you should try and keep it as simple as possible, and to some degree you can with technology. Secondly, it's all about needs to know. So I do a complete package where I come in, do an assessment, put a report together, cost everything, if necessary, get it all together, set it up, deliver it. Now that I'm working from Mildura, I've been doing a lot of this remotely with various technologies, and then deliver training and assistance. So, I mean, we can talk about some of the technologies that are around because I have no idea what people know about, and sometimes it's best to assume no knowledge and run from there. I have to say the biggest game changer in the last 12 months has been what Apple have done. I've used Android for quite a few years because it was more open and it was easier with clients to customise it. But since iOS 13 last year, especially with voice control in it, I'm not sure how many people are aware of it or use it, but it basically means you can run Apple devices totally by voice. You don't have to touch or engage with them at all. And I've got a lot of clients who've never been able to use touch properly, and now they can do everything. I think I've put together 17 pages of commands, but I have cut that down to a 2 or 3 page summary of the most useful ones. And it's built into the system, so it doesn't use the internet. It downloads once into the phone or the iPad, even Mac computers. And if you're interested a little later, I've got a couple of little videos I can share showing it at work. But
that'd be
sorry,
great.
yes, mate.
That'd be great to see little videos, Jeff. It's
Okay.
visual, yeah.
So you'll need to give me permission to share my screen.
Not a problem. Yeah. So tell us when you're ready, so we don't see you moving around.
I'm ready. I'm super organised here. Having said that, it'll all just fall apart, no doubt. We know what technology's like. I used to teach media studies and that in a girls' school, and you'd have 30 students come in. You'd have prepared everything. You've got your computers, all the tech all ready to go. 30 students hit the room. You go to the equipment, and it doesn't work. But so I've well and truly experienced those sorts of things. So I'll share the screen and show you a couple of things. Okay. Now, let's just see, go back here. Wake up. Open mail. Now, I'm just going to pause it for a second. Can everybody see that?
Yes.
Yep.
So you should be seeing an iPhone that I've got, and I'll go back and run it. Wake up. Open mail. Show numbers continuously. 12. Jeff Neal. 5. 7. Just a test. 8. Hi, Jeff. New line. This is just a short test to show voice control at work, full stop. I'm able to dictate quite effectively.
Wow, just works.
Yeah.
It's very impressive.
Yeah.
And what app is this, Jeff?
Full stop. 3. Go home. Go to sleep.
Which app are you using there, Jeff?
Okay. Sorry?
Which app were you using then?
Well, what it is it's voice control that is built in right across the whole iPhone or the iPad.
Wow.
So effectively, you use that with everything on the device.
Right.
So what I was doing there was basically opening mail. You can often just say open camera, open mail, open control center, or you can use numbers. That numbering is right across the whole system. And that means anything that you would normally tap has a number on it. And so you just say the numbers and it's the same as if you're tapping it.
Okay.
So this is this actually on the smartphone, not that you can access it?
Yeah, if you have an Apple iPhone,
Yeah.
and iOS, the operating system 13 is what you have to have in place. That will work as far back as a 6S. However, it can be fairly battery intensive with the older ones like the 6S. Generally, the ideal one for people to purchase is either going to be an iPhone 11, not a Pro. The Pro, there's $600-800 difference. The iPhone 11, if it's to be purchased, is about $11.99. But there's also a new one out, the iPhone SE, second generation. Now, that's about $7.99. And what they've done is they've taken an iPhone 8 sort of size and they've put the inner workings of an 11 in there. So if you had to go and buy one tomorrow, what's the cheapest that will give you all this access for the next, they usually have about a 5-year lifespan. So it means that if you bought say an iPhone SE now, you should get at least 5 years use out of it, and the operating systems they produce each year should even work on it for that 5 years.
Will there be a new model released in September?
Yeah, it's the usual thing. They're releasing iOS 14 in September. What this has done, Apple's never really first to the game, but when Apple enter, they usually have done it right. So you often find Android will do things and may do things ahead. But I have to say, I've tested across the board, and the voice control on these Apple devices really, for consistency and performance, just leaves the others for dead. So you can get away with an iPhone SE. The other thing is you go into the accessibility features, and it's voice control. It's not voice over. People tend to confuse it. You've got to go down to voice control and turn it on. And the first time you turn it on, it downloads into the phone. So the beauty of that is you're not needing internet at all. And from a privacy point of view, that's a good thing. And Apple are really pushing privacy. I've never been an Apple fan, and because they're so restrictive, but this actually has the advantages that the restrictive approach actually means is consistency across the board. I've got another video that I can show you, another short one where I'm surfing the web. What you'll see across the two videos, it's not a massive learning curve because you can do most of it just by saying the number on what you want. And so, and then, swipe left, swipe right. You would have heard me saying go home, which takes you back to the home screen. So from a learning curve point of view, if you got through the couple of pages of commands that I see as the main working commands, that's all you need. Do you want to see the second video?
Yes, please. Please.
Sure.
Righty-o. I'll just get organised here. So using Safari.
Wake up,
Yeah, hang on, we've got wrong screens.
open Safari.
Get away. All right. Everyone see that? Okay, I'll pause it. First thing you've got to do is you've got to make sure you're running iOS 13 on the device. So you've got to go into general settings and make sure you go into and in there you go to about. And under about it should say the software version.
I haven't got that.
So general, and then about, and then software version should say 13.
Okay, go.
I've got something about the iStore on here.
If it says 13, then you can.
Under you.
Yep,
Voice.
13.5.
What was that?
13.51 I've got.
Yep, that means it's completely up to date.
Yep,
And if you then go back to general,
Yeah.
yep.
down the bottom, actually get out of general completely and go back to the main settings.
Got that.
And then you're going to find that there is an accessibility.
Yep,
Just if you go in there,
yep.
and then you go down to physical and motor,
There it is.
and then it says voice control.
That's a
Yep.
no. I don't want it, but
Yeah.
no,
So
no.
if you went into voice control and you turned it on, it'll download. Once it's downloaded, you basically say, wake up and show numbers, and then you know it's working.
So you can, oh wow, there's a lot to do if you were going to do that. Oh,
I've
well
got my phone, it's on the charge.
So if you're interested, to make things easier, I'll send Peter the short set of commands, and he can distribute them if you want a copy to save you. They're in the phone, but it's hard to find them.
Yeah, that'd be great. Thank you, Jeff. Yeah.
Thank you.
I'll just run this video because it shows you one of the most common things people do is surf the net. Wake up, open Safari, show numbers, who,
The dog in the background.
.com.au,
Oh,
show numbers, or show numbers, 19,
there they are.
scroll up, scroll down, scroll down, show numbers, show grid,
Grid.
tap open, scroll down, show grid, 28, tap 3, scroll down,
Well, you ought to be watching this. This is just amazing what you can do with your voice,
go
but you
down,
have to get used to it.
go to sleep.
Phew.
Is there a list of commands somewhere?
Yeah, I'll send a copy to Peter and he can distribute them.
A heap of them.
Okay.
Good, thank you.
They're in the phone, but they're really difficult to find, and often it's easier to just have a printout, which tells you what the command is and what to say.
I went into, where did I go?
What you will have noticed is at one point there, I needed to get to a certain spot and numbering just was not going to do it. So I then said, show grid, because the grid splits the screen into squares with numbers, and then you just say the number to get it to narrow down. So I said show grid, I said 28, and it had got a little grid on the spot I wanted, and then I just said tap 3. So it's quite an intuitive style you can get used to quite quickly. And I'm into options, so I'm not saying this is the be-all and end-all, but this is certainly one very useful approach. And because it's built into the operating system, you can pretty well guarantee that it's now going to be part of these devices into the future. So what I'm doing now is I do some work with environmental control companies and try and bring them in when I identify needs. But the end result is you say, whatever you put in place, you have to have an app, because by giving them an app on their iPhone or their iPad, you're giving them voice control. You don't have to do anything more than have that app on the phone, and then you've got voice control just by the numbers. So that means that you can open and shut your blinds, open and shut your door, change your TV, all that just by sitting with an environmental control app on the phone and just saying numbers.
Yeah, I really like the idea as well as the voice control is not via the internet, so it
Yes.
breaks down that middle service.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, so
It-
can you
it's-
talk a bit about that, Jeff? How that takes out that middleman, or middle sort of service,
So there's no Hey Siri.
Yeah. Hey
Hey
Siri.
Siri to make phone calls for me.
Yeah. Hey Siri's still available, and sometimes, people will put in Philips Hue lights. And once you put these lights in, you can have the app, the home app on the iPhone will identify that, and then you can say, hey Siri, turn on lounge. Hey Siri, turn off lounge. you can be still using Hey Siri for its features, but voice control is separate in the sense that it's part of the system. So you sometimes tend to get to the point where you use a blend of both.
Yeah.
I like the fact too that you can add to this over time, and I've worked with Alexas, with Google Homes. I really don't like working with them because they don't have the durability. They'll do a software upgrade and suddenly your Alexa doesn't work, or you've got to reprogram things. Your internet is not working well one day, and that means that you've lost access to all these things. So that's where, if environmental controls get put in, my argument would be that you try and get them fully operational in a central manner on a wireless network in your house, not the internet, your wireless network. And then with voice control, your chances of having any sort of breakdown or interference are a lot less.
Yeah.
Because if you get all this, the worst thing is to wake up one day and find it's all been taken away from you because the internet doesn't work.
Yeah. And internet connection is restricted, or it's not always reliable currently. Yeah. So, I'm in that realm where I've got a home automation system set up in my house through Android, and it's all Wi-Fi. So if it's down, it doesn't work. And it's probably more, I notice it more now that I'm using it so much on my phone. So, but being wireless in a different way, just through the phone, is much better. Yeah.
Yeah. But, I mean, you try and, why I liked this when it came along was it gives you more consistency and reliability. And like I say, if you start using this, it gives you enormous independence. And the last thing you want is to find that it's knocked out just because of a poor internet connection.
Hey, Jeff, can you give us some examples of how it's making people more independent in their life, and probably those people who are have high injuries, how it's opening up their options to being more independent? Yeah.
Well, I've got a young guy who's a C0 quad. That means he can move his bottom lip and his eyes, and that's about it. He's driving his wheelchair with a tiny little chin joystick, and I tell you what, he's pretty damn good at it. He's about 16. So using that, we've had them program the joystick for the mouse control. That means he could effectively control an iPad or an iPhone because they also now have mouse control. And so he would get a little circle on screen that he could move around. And they programmed into his joystick a left or a right click, or a tap in that case, and he just moves the joystick sharply when he wants it. We also had him on a computer where he had a dwell click toolbar, so it does all the clicking, and he's just moving around making his choices. Because he can't speak, I created an interface for communication in software called the Grid, and now this enabled him to go back to school and to actually communicate with the others there in the same manner. So his interface is just simply that little joystick and dwell clicking. And the interface I designed allows him to customise it and add to it, and he can put in phrases, and if he wants to swear, that's fine by me. Get rid of his carers, and he's just there with his mates. But some of the other things we've done, we've got a farmer up in Caniva, and he's got a full environmental setup, which is a C-bus setup put in place. He runs everything from his bedroom. He uses voice. He uses head control. He's got a smart nav device with a little dot. But we've sort of moved on. He's gone. It was about 2012 when I met him. he hadn't dealt with technology at all. And I said to him, you're really going to need to embrace technology if you want to run your farm and you want to get back to things. And he's embraced it brilliantly in the last 8 years. He now manages his farm from his bedroom or his man shed. He can raise and lower the roller door with his controls. He can turn a pump on in the fields. He's now got drones that he runs and flies over the farm. And he's just got himself a new computer with a large screen to run the more powerful drones he's got so that he can monitor his crops. And he's paralysed from the neck down, but he's now back having complete control over his farm.
So who would be paying for all of that?
Yeah, so that was TAC, and that was a battle. I mean, look, this is the thing. Funding is always a battle.
Yeah.
And try to hammer into the funding bodies that a certain amount of expense is life-changing, and if you put the right sort of technology structure in place, then it saves a fortune over time.
Yeah.
But I've just had a situation where I have a couple who have major hearing issues. They're effectively nearly deaf. One has a cochlear implant, the other has AIDS, but they've also got a 15-month-old kitty, and they really are terrified about things like forgetting to leave the front door open because he's on a busy street. What happens when he's now getting old enough to get out of the cot? What about windows being left open? What if someone comes to the door and mum's out at the clothesline? She's sort of even fearful of going out the back in case she misses someone. So they've tried for a couple of years different sorts of devices that are on the market, and none of them address their issues properly. So I work a lot with an engineer. We put our heads together with the OT and designed an alert system using LED lights around the house connected to everything, and it would be colour-coded. And using pressure mats in the kiddies' room, where if you jumped out of the cot, they'd get an alert. And it even got to the point where the alert, when they're in bed, would send a signal to a mat under the bed, causing vibrations to wake them up. We put all this in to NDIS, and we just found out yesterday their response from their what they call their technology advisory panel, was it didn't meet the reasonable and necessary requirements. Now, my attitude to that is, okay, that's fine, so suggest an alternative.
Yeah.
Solve their problem. That's the issue. Don't knock it back, blanket, and leave them with the problem. Now, this is the trouble with funding bodies. You've started something now.
The funding bodies are getting better, and it's about the bigger case that you can build with the more evidence, with people like Jeff and OTs and all that stuff, and how it fits your goals or your needs or supports your disability. The more information, incredible information you give, makes the answer easier for the funding body to answer that towards a yes. So you have to sort of build that information into them to make them say yes. Because I am actually seeing a lot more stuff come through. Technology has been recognised through the funding bodies, definitely.
And look, and COVID has helped with that too. They've had to relax quite a bit under COVID. And look, you're right, Peter. One of the things, there's many reasons I've moved to Mildura, but one of them is I've been working with an allied agency up here. They've appointed a young OT as their tech OT, which means that when they get clients, they go with tech needs, they go to him, he meets with me, and we work together. So you've got the OT with the knowledge to some degree working with me, and our plan is to basically educate NDIS planners and people.
Yeah.
You know, because a lot of it is just the lack of knowledge.
Hey, Jeff, what sort of stuff are you seeing come through NDIS currently that people are starting to get? Yeah.
I'm getting iPads, iPhones, iWatches, and all through. A lot of it. The trick under NDIS is to be self-managed because you've got more flexibility. But even plan managers, they're putting a lot of that through now under low-cost AT. Yeah, part of the trick is knowing the line items and knowing the way to present it to them. So, you know, I had a package of a iPad 12.9, an iPhone 11 and a watch. And I'd written a very detailed report, and I'd explain, because I write my reports for people as if the person who's reading it has no idea about technology. So I explain everything. And I think it came to about 4,200, and plan management put it through as low-cost AT, 42 multiples of $100. So again, it's about knowing how to present it and get it through.
Yeah.
And
I've actually been starting to see personal alarms get picked up a lot more through NDIS, and phones starting to be considered as a personal alarm. You know, so
Yeah.
that's a step towards getting in that way. Yeah.
well, let me run with the idea of an iPhone and an iWatch. Firstly, the reason the iWatch, one of the brilliant things is that it has a fall response. If you've programmed the health app, so you've put in your main contacts and all, if you have a fall, within a minute, the watch will react. It'll identify that you've had a fall because you've changed your position through the gravitron. And so what it'll do is it'll give you the option, if you can tap it and turn it off. But if you can't, because you've had the fall, it will automatically, within a minute, ring emergency services, and it will then follow up by ringing each of your contacts in your health app. So that's linked to your phone. As long as your phone is on, it also means your watch is a phone.
Yeah.
So
And
because a lot of these alarm systems now, personal alarms, are monitored. So that takes out the whole monitoring side of things. Yeah.
It does. I mean, they say these are everyday items. Well, of course they are. But then you look at all these adaptive and accessibility elements, and it's much more sensible for a person to have these things in an everyday device they can use for a multitude of reasons than to have a specialist item that probably ends up costing a lot more. But you know, if you get the watch that has the eSIM in it, it's connected to your phone. So you don't touch your phone. You can take the calls on your watch. You can do SMSs on your watch. You can use Siri on the watch. And you can leave your phone at home, and as long as it's on, your watch will act as a phone when you're out and about.
Yeah, it's awesome.
That's it's like Denise has got. So would that be better than the MEPAX one?
You've sort of got to, I suppose, you've got to look at your individual situation and what your needs are, and then you sort of ask yourself, well, are my needs going to be met with that technology, and does it suit me? You know, is having a specialist item going to do the job, or would I prefer? Does this? I've got one on me. Does this watch enable me to not only do that and do it well and consistently and with peace of mind, but also give me all these other features?
So how much is an iWatch?
I on average, I mean, look, it depends on your band. If you want to buy the Hermes band, you're talking $2,000. If you buy I have one which has what's called the Milanese loop. Years ago, I lived in Milan in Italy, so the only reason I got it is because I like the name. It's magnetic. It's very easy.
Oh, that's good. Yeah.
So
In them up.
you've got to look at ease of control.
Yeah.
So
and
it just slips on.
Yeah.
Oh, I like that.
That's always been a
Like
problem.
Yeah. So there's that. Slightly cheaper, about $80 cheaper in terms of the band, is what they call the Sport Loop. And again, it does a similar sort of thing. You're talking about $849 for an iWatch that has cellular and GPS. It's the cellular version that gives you the eSIM. And what happens?
That gives you the what, sorry? The cellular version gives you what?
Yeah, they call it an eSIM, like an electronic SIM card.
All right.
You need the watch with that, because what happens is when you first set up the watch, it asks you, do you want that? And if you say yes, basically it costs you $5 a month added to your phone bill, whether that's Telstra or Optus or Vodafone. And so for $5 a month, your watch becomes a phone linked to your phone.
Right.
So that's why you've got to make the right decision about the eSIM watch, and that's where you're talking. The cheapest, I think, is with a Sport Loop is about $849.
Right.
And what about Android? Does Android have anything similar?
Look, they do to some degree, but I've sort of not focused on Android in the last 12 months since Apple did this so right. And generally, I find the problem with Android was what was its strength before, and that was that its system is much more open. Apps can get access to the actual layers underneath in the operating system, which Apple is much stricter about controlling. So that used to be good, but you also get various versions of Android. And so the problem is, depending on, say, if you're using a phone, it depends on who your provider is as to the type and version of Android that you've got. And for people who think Apple's bad in terms of, big corporation and your privacy, what Google does with your information, is...
Yeah.
So... I tend to think, yes.
Where would it be best to buy an iWatch? Where would you suggest buying one?
Look, I live
in Warrnambool.
You can buy it from the Apple Store online.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
What you do?
You can search the price, Georgia, and go with the best one. But also, we were just talking a little bit before this, that funding bodies are recognising these things.
Yeah.
If you get an OT and word it up and talk about how it can improve with your life, depending on your funding bodies are recognising this as a personal alarm or a means of technology to support you, So maybe look at those avenues as well.
Yeah, I will.
Jeff, I have a question. Sorry.
So we'll go Mary first.
The sports model.
Oh, Jeff, I was wondering, do you need good hand function to operate an iWatch?
If you want to be fully independent, not rely on anybody, you need to be able to slip it on.
Yes, I can do that.
If you've got morning care, then your carer could fit it. Once it's on, you can use Siri with it. So you can set reminders. You can make calls just all by voice. So the interface, when you look at it, it's pretty small. So you try and do as much as you can by voice rather than having to, fiddle with a very tiny screen. But you can also have your phone there, and you can tap things on your phone, but it interacts with your watch as well.
Right. Okay. Yeah, just need to have my glasses handy as well.
Yeah. You could put voiceover on, but then, we really, it's a lot to handle all at once.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's why, to me, technology is a very individual thing, and you've really got to make sure that it's customised and you work out a way for that particular person to use it in the easiest and most useful manner. And that's stuff I'm doing all the time, because otherwise you don't use it. Because
it's great if it works. So
yeah, it's like it's all a bit too hard because there's just too much.
Thank you.
Let's jump over to you, Craig. What were you saying, mate? Craig, you there? What were you saying? Sorry. Yeah.
Oh, does it like Bluetooth between the watch and the phone? Like the AirPods too. Are they like? Is that how it connects to your phone?
Yeah. You can. I use a particular little Bluetooth headset.
Jeff, I think the question was, how does the watch communicate to the phone? Like, what's the platform that it uses?
Well, it's a mixture, because when you're away from it, it's actually all its functions that are linked to the phone are happening through the cellular approach, so that when you're getting calls and that, it's in a sense like a shared SIM. When you're nearby, it's probably linked in through a Bluetooth arrangement, but yeah, I mean, mine at the moment with my watch has it linked and connected via Bluetooth. But then if I left my phone and I went shopping, I can still have a lot of the functions of the of the phone available. It downloads, if you want, all your apps from the phone to the watch.
Okay.
There's an interface which is this may be hard to see, but I've set mine up so it actually scrolls through all the different apps. There is a function where it actually has a circle with all these little app images, but it's so incredibly tiny. But there's an enormous amount of apps that you could use on the watch that are from the phone. So it's just all completely interlinked. One of my big things is to have technology that synchronises across the platform. If you've got a phone and you put a contact in it, it should automatically be on your iPad, it should be on your computer, and that could be a Windows 10 computer. It's just about how you configure and set it all up. And
is it the link between the telephone and the wristwatch? Is there like an element of can you communicate between the two as well? Like, can you? Is there like an intercom system between the two or not?
You mean if you have
Between the
watch,
telephone, yeah.
if you have the watch somewhere and the phone somewhere else?
Yeah.
There is something I haven't explored, but there is a walkie-talkie type arrangement, and I've been meaning to explore that for a while, where I think you can actually use them like a walkie-talkie for with someone else who's got one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But there is another feature I should tell you about. Anyone who's got these will realise that it vibrates at times. Underneath it, it's got what they call haptic touch. So it can check your heart rate, check your blood pressure. The new version that comes out, the new operating system, is going to have developments in the biomedical field in these watches. And there's a blind girl in England who wanted to go out and about and enjoy herself and go to the dance and all this. And her mum and dad were worried about her. Mum and dad had Apple Watches, as did the girl. And there is a way that you can design your own sort of touch sequences, you know, a bit like Morse code. And so they worked out a signal that she would go out for the night with her friends. If she needed to be picked up, she'd tap that pattern into her watch and mum and dad would get that. And that was the signal for them to check her GPS settings so they'd see where she was and they can go and pick her up.
Right.
So
Amazing.
see,
Amazing.
what I love about this is nobody would have thought of those sorts of activities when they designed this. But what happens is you put these items out in people's hands and people begin to innovate beyond that. And, you know, so we get this criticism that it's an everyday item, so we shouldn't fund it. And yet, when it's put in the hands of people with needs, they come up with all sorts of solutions beyond what was originally thought.
Yeah, that's generally the case. You know, a lot of people get home automation systems or whatever that might be, technology, and they grow into it and grow beyond it. You know, and it's a perfect example. Yeah, I've had some really good opportunities to see, because I do a lot of regional work, see people who are very high quadriplegics, the way they manage their care team, their shopping, their environment, everything just through their phone has really switched me on until how much people are doing out there with this new technology being backed by the funding bodies, because it makes them more independent. It gets them out more, gets them more inclusive, and, you know, and it's chopping down in carers' hours because they can do more without carers, you know. So it opened my mind a lot more than what I thought what was possible. Yeah.
That's the thing about funding too, is, you know, someone who really wants to be independent, and I've had plenty of people who said they prefer less people around them and less carers if they can get by without them. And of course, the funding bodies, that becomes an attraction when you start to calculate, even if an hour a day is not required, that's a massive fund saving, way beyond the technology. But the other thing is, I'm sure that we'd all know, human beings are incredibly adaptive. You know, I'm finding as I get older and I'm getting issues and you know, my hips playing up and all, you just adapt. You find ways of getting by and living with it. Then if you take that natural adaptive ability and you put technology in place, then the same thing applies there. It gives you a tool set to become more adaptive.
I'd love to hear from you, Sharon, and from Easy Tech Living, you know, sort of your view on what's going on in your end of the world. Yeah, with technology. Yeah.
Yeah, so we're more on the home automation side, and like Jeff, we deal with some complex cases, a lot of TAC funding, a lot of NDIS funding. We found TAC to be very adaptable as far as listening to what the needs are, as long as we can, and as Jeff said, as long as you can put the case forward using the right words, the funding is there with TAC. NDIS, not so much. It's a bit of a minefield. And I agree with Jeff, since COVID came into play, it appears that a lot more approvals are coming through. I don't know whether it's because they have more time to actually look at each application case by case, or whether some of the advocating that we've been doing and that Jeff's been doing, and they're starting to listen. We dealt with one of the PR ladies within the NDIS and also sent a letter to the CEO. We had at least 30 applications in that had been in there for about, well, one as long as 2 years. Someone, a young man with a progressive chronic illness where he is now prone in a wheelchair and only has use of the 2 fingers on one hand, was waiting for technology, and that was sitting there for so long, and finally after 2 years sending that list through, that did come out of the end, as we call it, the funnel, because it's quite narrow, and they were drip feeding the applications back through as approvals. But in the last 2 months, we've had at least 12 be approved, which is just unprecedented. So I guess it's a combination of, yes, they have the time to look at it, and yes, we're becoming more adept at putting the right wording in and advocating for assistive technology and putting those case studies in as far as cost savings go, as Jeff has touched on as well.
Yeah.
So
typically, Sharon, what do you think people are getting more of, or it's coming over the line easier, and probably around something that suits this market, what we're talking about, the spinal cord injury type? What are you seeing things that are coming through more with NDIS and funding?
Okay, what's coming through lately is complex applications. So we're talking about people who want to live independently, that are moving into SBA housing, and they need assistance with, from the very start, opening the gate and getting into the property, opening the front door, getting into their room space, so whether that door be a slider or a swing arm door, getting into their own room, being able to, as Jeff has touched on, open their blinds, their windows, turn their lights on and off. We also do temperature control, so we can control the AC and reverse cycle in there. So those sorts of things, allowing people to live independently in their own space, is starting to be approved. So we've had about 4 or 5 of those come through in the last couple of months.
Fantastic. Yeah. Myself, I do a bit of support coordination for AQA, and we've been receiving bulletins right from the start of COVID saying, okay, let's relax a bit. With NDIS have been giving us bulletins saying they're going to relax a bit more with assistive technology, and the 2 levels of assistive technology being 1 and 2 has been a bit more relaxed, which is really good, and that means things can go through automatically or easier without O2 reports, I should say.
Yeah, so we're putting a lot through under that if we can, for less complex. For example, we have a lady with a chronic illness that is progressively making her unable to use her hands, but she does have voice. But she wants high complex automation, such as her blinds and windows, etc. So we're putting them through piecemeal using the low cost, low risk level up to the $1,500. So we'll do a quote through for a certain amount to do one piece for her. And because she's self-managed, it's easier for her to get that through and get that approved. And then we're moving on to the next thing for her, which is, I believe it's her light the technician is working on at the moment. So there are ways and means you can get through for something that's not overly complex and just get it through with bites through the NDIS. We have a gentleman who's with TAC who we did quite an extensive installation for, right down to carer calling system, because during the night he has problems with breathing and with temperature control. He has to be able to call his carers what they had installed for him previously. Now, we're talking about a gentleman who, very similar to the case that Jeff talked about, he uses the mouse stick to, he has an iPad that comes around the side of his wheelchair and he can tap on that so he can move his head. And 10 years ago, when he first had his injury, they gave him funding to actually press his head against a plate on the headboard of his bed if he became distressed in the night. Now, we're talking about a gentleman who can only move his head. You could imagine if he's in respiratory distress at night to have to push something like that and hold it for 10 seconds to call the carers. It was just failing on him every time. So now he can just lie in bed and just say, I need help, and lights will come on in the carer's bedroom, sirens will go off, movement sensors will pick people up moving through the house so the lights come on. His bedroom is already lit up because he said those words. Yeah, so that works a lot better for him as far as getting the carer response he needs. He can also call the carers anywhere in the house. Yes, Jim.
Sharon, if he's choking, is there an alternative apart from saying something?
Yes, he can actually, that head press is still in place for him, but we're also looking at putting something in for him that doesn't have to be a 10-second item, a shorter. So he can actually, it's about just turning his head on the side and pushing on that, but it's a tricky one, and we're trying to work with his OT at the moment to find the best solution for that backup plan, because that is tricky for him if he's choking.
Sounds like a call button in hospital.
What about
There's the headrest number. That's they use in hospital.
Say again?
They use the headrest one in hospital.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's more of a soft button type approach. This is more of a wireless environmental system, yeah.
Yes.
What about a proximity switch? We've had this situation with the guy in Conniva. He had, they had the old microphone stand with the flick switch, and he had to sort of, flick the switch to make the call. His daughter was up getting a drink of water one night, and she heard him choking, and they hadn't placed it properly. Now, if she hadn't have got up, he'd have been dead.
Yes.
So what we ended up, when we put the full system in place, we used a proximity switch where you only have to get near it. You don't have to touch it.
The sensor.
And then that was connected into his alarm system, which woke up the whole of Conniva. But it certainly made sure his carers had to come into the room to turn the alarm system off.
Yes, yeah. That's a great idea. I'll talk to our technician about that. Thanks, Jeff.
Yeah. Proximity switches take a lot of that problem out of it completely.
I'll make a note of that. Thank you.
Hey, Mark, love to hear from you as well from Statewide Services. We've heard a lot from these guys. Like to hear how much bit of your input too. Bit of feedback would be great. How are you going with technology and stuff with your clients or in your area?
Okay, I'm in Goulburn area, which is Shepparton, and we were one of the last areas to roll over into the NDIS. So I've only been doing this for 12 months, and I'm still learning lots of things. So there's been a bit of a restructure within the department in like support coordination and the services. So we've now got 2 colleagues from Ballarat that are now in our team. So she forwarded her invite to this meeting today to me and my other colleagues. So I just thought this is an ideal opportunity to find out what other services are out there, because I think in the future, because we're a statewide service, we will possibly be doing support coordination all over the state, not necessarily in our own area.
Yeah, it'd be good for us to share contacts so you can be in our mailing list of things.
Yes.
Because it's all the big picture is we'll join up and share our information.
Yes, that would be wonderful.
So if Kelly could just give you her email, that'd be great.
Okay, that'd be great.
Yeah. So, but tell us what sort of things you guys are doing around Shep and stuff like that?
Okay. We've got
Technology
some,
side.
well, not a lot because, as I said, we're all new to it up here. And the majority of my participants have, some are in the justice system and have intellectual disability. So, so, and they're difficult to make contact and connect with. So that's our biggest issue is like finding them and keeping them engaged.
Yeah. Oh, well, it's good to hear and see you pop in. I'm glad we caught you. And yeah.
Oh, look, I've learnt so much today. It's been very, very interesting.
Awesome. Now, we also run a regional group in Shepparton. And,
Do you?
Yes. So we meet up with that group, like this group today, once a month.
Yeah.
And depending on what the group wants to talk about or what we've lined up for them. Today, for this Geelong group, we've got Jeff Neal talking about technology, and there's been some other participants come along, so it's been really good. Yeah.
Oh, good. I would really like to be involved in the Shepparton one.
Yep. All right, Jeff, what do you reckon?
Well, did you want me to show you a few other quick things?
Oh, yeah, that'd be awesome.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Okay, what I'll do is I'll share my screen because it's easier for, well, firstly, you don't have to look at me. You can actually look at some of the stuff I'm going to talk about. So we'll get that happening. And these are just some of the other things that are around and that are available. So, for instance, that's the little headset that I use a lot with clients. It's a Plantronics 5200, 5200. Why it's so good is it's very lightweight. You can wear it all day. It connects to phone and to computer. The computer, it connects with a USB dongle. It has voice in it. So what happens is, connected to any phone, Android or iPhone, if somebody calls you, it'll tell you there's a call and it'll say answer or ignore. And if you say answer, you're taking the call without needing to go anywhere near your phone. Now, you have to say answer. And I had a truckie in Bendigo. It took him weeks to get from answer to answer. but he had the incentive and it worked. But I do it.
Preston, took him 2 days. That's me. To switch to answer because I've got the same one. Yeah.
It's incredibly versatile. I do an enormous amount of work with Dragon, naturally speaking, on computers. The full professional version 15, you can run your whole system with that. I can customise it. I've got some programming and scripts that I can put in that give people enormous control. And you could be using Dragon and dictating, and it's really, there's no training with it anymore. It's that good. And I have to say, voice control on the Apple is actually, the people from Dragon have worked with them on it, and that's why it's so good. And it just switches automatically. If your phone goes off, it switches to the phone. When it's finished, it's back to the computer. So it's a really versatile little unit. And that's a charging case that it comes with where you can just set it in overnight and charge it again. A couple of other things.
And what's the cost of that, Jeff?
Yeah, I was going to ask that too. How much?
Yeah, the price varies. I get some of them in because they're quite hard to get at times, and it's about $349.
Wow.
Technology, there's a lot of tech quite hard to get at the moment because of COVID and also because of everyone working from home.
Sorry, Jeff. Yeah.
Go for it.
So what distance are you allowed yourself from your telephone? Is there like 100 metres or 50 metres?
Look, it's a strong Bluetooth connection. Generally, I find if my phone is in the centre of the house, I can pretty well be anywhere in the house. It actually tells you when it disconnects. So when you turn it on and you've already connected your phone and your computer, it says to you, phone 1 connected, PC connected. If you walk out of it, it'll say phone 1 disconnected. And
so do you wear it behind your ear?
Yeah, it just sits over the ear. I generally tell people to put the large bit behind the ear and then you put that little bit inside. But part of the reason I've been using these the last few years is because everyone I've got using them says they can wear them all day and they're really comfortable. Plus the accuracy with Dragon, naturally speaking, the little bar has a range of noise cancelling microphones. So it's...
I use this one and my range is pretty good. I've always got my phone on me, but when I get out the front or start to jump in my car, then it disconnects me from my computer and it tells me, disconnect from your phone, or it gives a beep letting me know. Yeah. So the range is pretty good with this thing.
Yeah, and really each individual has to find out in their building and all what's the range. At my place, I found I could go to the letterbox and I could go to the back fence and it was still connected. But a lot of people...
What do we ask for when we were wanting to buy one?
It's a Plantronics Voyager 5200.
Sorry, could you say that again, please?
Yep, Plantronics.
Electronics.
I'll get Kelly to send you a message with that. We can write that to you, Georgia.
Oh, there you go, up the top.
Have a look at the screen. And if you want...
Plantronics, okay.
If you add the UC at the end, that's the model which has the case and the USB dongle.
Voyager.
Hey Jeff, can you get a shorter arm for that, or that's it? Yeah.
That's pretty well it. That's a pretty short arm. If it was sitting on, basically it just sits there.
Yeah.
But technology is an interesting thing. A month ago, I got new hearing aids. Now, the hearing aids I've got have rechargeable batteries. So it's a rechargeable unit I put on each night. They stream to my phone. So now I don't pick up my phone. If I get a call, I can press one hearing aid and I'm talking to people and hearing them in my ears. I've got a little boxed unit. I plug that into the TV and I hear the TV in my hearing aids as if normal speech, and everyone else in the room can hear it through the TV. So I'd been... You
don't get an echo?
No. These... since I had hearing problems and I found this one particular company, I started doing some research for them and testing product. And I said to them that, look, you're going to want something that's rechargeable batteries because you're changing them all the time. It'd be great to have it connect to the phone. And in the end, what they've got is this product that comes from Switzerland, and it ticked all the boxes. And this is what I mean about the sort of technology out there these days. I had those things I wanted, and this has ticked every box. And they're tiny. Most people don't even know I'm wearing them.
So do you leave your hearing aids in when you've got the headset on? I
I don't use that headset a lot now because I don't need to, because I've got these hearing aids connected to the phone and
Right.
such. But I can sit that on. Just gets a bit cluttered. Windows 10 has eye gaze built into the operating system. Now, what that means is if you get a small device like this one, which is a Tobii PC eye tracker, that can sit under the monitor or under your laptop screen, and that will allow you, with the inbuilt eye gaze in the operating system, to control the whole computer by eyesight. So instead of an $18,000 eye gaze unit, you got your Windows 10 computer, about a $500 device, and you've got eye control. And it gives you a toolbar where you can choose by looking, right click, left click. If you have got a mouse on screen, you get this little circle. You look at the arrows to move it, and then you look at the right or left click to make an action. You can type with your eyes. You can choose the keyboard, and you just look at the keys and it types. I've typed a full paragraph into Facebook and sent it just with eyes. So a lot of this is getting into the systems, and that's making it actually a lot cheaper in the long run. So that exists. It's the equivalent, I suppose, of voice control with Apple, what they've done. And finally, a few more things. Head movement and head control. This is what's called Glass House. Wear it like a pair of glasses, connects by Bluetooth, moves the mouse on screen. You can use a dual-click toolbar, or in this case, you've got that photo shows you a bite switch, and she just bites down on that for clicking. You can use that with a computer, with iPad, with iPhone, probably Android devices, any device that you can connect it to by Bluetooth. And it's pretty rock solid. It's probably, of all the head devices, it's the one with the smoothest sort of action. And the other head device is this one, which is a gyroscopic mouse. That's that little box, little unit there on the glasses. And with that, we actually going to, right. I like to do case studies because it gives you a clearer picture. Had a young chap who trained as a teacher, and he was a quadriplegic, couldn't move from the neck down. He wanted to teach. His primary school that he went to said they were prepared to give him a go if we could work out a way for him to operate in a classroom. So we put a little Surface Pro at the front of the classroom. We connected that into the big whiteboard. We had Dragon Naturally Speaking on it, and he had the little headset, and he was able to do a whole lot of functions just by voice commands and dictating. We had the gyroscopic mouse connected, so he's at the back of the room, and he's able, looking at the big whiteboard, to move his pointer around, use Dragon commands, use a dual-click toolbar. So that ticked all the boxes in him being able to be in a classroom, move around it, and control. I think he was teaching a computer programming course to them. And the best thing I noticed was his discipline was superb, because he'd threatened to run the kids over with his massive wheelchair if they got out of line. But, you know, it often makes more sense when you hear of a case study and how, now the gyroscopic mouse meant that he didn't need to be anywhere near the computer. He could be down the back of the room, and it's a gyroscope. It's all about your position in space. So as long as he could do that with it on his head,
Yeah.
You could move the mouse down on the computer at the other end of the classroom.
God, incredible.
You can see what I mean about you've really got to get to know the person and what their needs are and what the limitations they face are. And then it's about finding the item, the technology, or the mixture of technology to come up with the solution. And I wanted to show you a couple of other things because we'll go back to sharing the screen. Because this is an interesting development. A lot of people with Parkinson's, with MS and that, get tremors and they have difficulty trying to keep things steady like a mouse and all on screen. This little device is an anti-tremor device. You plug a mouse or joystick or that into that. That connects to iPhones and iPads by Bluetooth. And the little green area, there's a plus and a minus. And while they're holding the mouse or the joystick, you adjust that until the mouse on screen moves steady, no matter if their hand's going like that. So it's an anti-tremor control. And you have a similar thing in that key, in that joystick. You can program that so that you can limit the effect on screen. So it doesn't matter if you're doing that, as long as your mouse is moving steadily in the direction you want on screen. So, and finally, this is a really useful stylus. For people who have trouble holding a stylus and that, but still want clear direction and touch, these can actually wrap around and be moulded to suit, and you can then just slip them on, and you find the most comfortable position. So she now just slides that on, and then she just targets really well. And that has got a weird name. It's called a Sedacious, CADUCEUS stylus. But there are all sorts of different ones. So that's just a few things that I wanted to show you, that it's not just voice control, it's not just Apple. There's so many. I get exhausted keeping up with it. You can see why OTs and speech pathologists really cannot grasp this sort of area in most cases. And so, we work together.
Yeah, it's great, really. There are so many things out there that, we just don't know they're available that can be so useful, really.
And look, this is the thing. We're communicating today, and that's really the problem. The problem is about getting the message out there, making people aware, and right back to NDIS planners and the pencil pushers and, the people who are in there deciding on funds. But the more that we can get communication happening and then working back, part of my thinking about being up in Mildura is because it was one of the last areas on, they've got LACs and that up here who honestly were probably working in retail or Coles and that before. And, it'd be good. And what we're going to try and do is start to sort of inform and educate and see if we can get word back in some of these funding bodies to understand the advantages. My thinking is we might be able to affect a region, but in Melbourne it's really difficult. There's so many people and so many OT, so many species.
But it's not only having the experts and the OTs, it's also having the participants being aware of what's out there for themselves.
Yeah.
And that's a great thing that we need to push. We need to to somehow show what's out there, because we some of the technology you showed me, I'm stunned. There are things that I think back 10 years and 20 years ago that I think is still available, that are no longer valid compared to what's come out now.
I'm going to have to leave. I'm sorry.
No worries, Georgia. That's fine.
So I'm going to too. Sorry, guys.
Yeah, thanks very much.
Well, look out.
Okay, bye.
We'll send you still an email with a bit of a wrap up.
Oh,
Thank you.
Jeff, how much do you charge an hour?
Look, it varies depending on where your funding's coming from and if you've got any funding.
TAC.
You know, under NDIS, I come under CB daily, improved daily living. I charge 165. I don't charge 190 odd that they've set for it. And an assessment might be around 6 hours for the meeting and the drawing up the report. If I do work for home care packages or such, it's more down 132.
Gotcha.
But Rory, this will go through your funding body, Rory. So turn it into your funding body to help you.
All right, I've got TAC now, so I don't have a problem.
Yeah. So the question is to ask TAC to engage service.
Yes.
It's often best with TAC to speak to your OT, give them my details, and I talk with your OT. We stand a better chance if the OT and I work together if you've got one.
Well, the TAC pay for the OT anyway.
Yeah, it's a combined front, and the OT looks at what I call clinical justification, and I look at all the technology and applications, and you work together.
Sounds good.
So I'll have to leave. I've got another meeting shortly. Thank you very much, Jeff. You were amazing. I'm just astounded by what's out there.
Oh, it's 20 years of hard work.
And I think work that you're very good at. All right. Thank you all very much. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
Peter, can I say thanks for this too? What you do with these networks, it's like we said, we've really got to have communication occurring, and John's right. At the participant level, it starts to empower you if you know what's out there.
Definitely.
And then you don't settle for second best. You shouldn't have to. I mean, but you often need to know who you go to get the right complete platform in place and get even taught and trained how to use it, and then away you go. All your boxes get ticked. So thanks, Peter. That's good. You're doing good work, man.
Thanks for everybody joining in and asking good questions and stimulating the whole conversation. It's been awesome. Yeah.
If nobody's got any other questions, I might depart too.
Thank you very much.
Vital, supporting people with spinal cord injury. It's about life.